Hi. Um, I had an email from a teen fan, and she was asking me advice on writing, and more specifically, how I find the time and where I get my ideas from. So I thought I would do a video answer. Um, so, first of all, my advice would be you're only a teenager. So I would say don't concentrate on writing a book, concentrate on living. I wrote my first book when I was 30, and a lot of what I write about is based on the experience I had in my teens and early 20s, like nannying in Nantucket, which is what I based my book The Sound on, and road tripping through the States and traveling around the world when I was 18 with my first boyfriend, and of course kissing lots of boys. So she asked where I get my ideas from, and that's where I get my ideas from living, from traveling, and from reading widely. I read newspapers, I read magazines, I read books. Every day I trawl through Flipboard on my iPad and I bookmark interesting stories and conspiracy theories and just anything that I think, ooh, that's interesting, and I keep them all in a file. And every so often I flip through them and think, ooh, that would make a good book or a good TV show. I talk to strangers and I ask them their stories. I talk to my grandparents, find out what it was like living during the war, little things like this. I gather up stories from my friends and write them all down. Every time I meet someone interesting or someone says something interesting, I'll make a note of it. And you know, I may never use them, but you never know, one day that person might become a character in one of my books, or the story might become the big hook for one of my novels. So you never know when stuff like that, when experiences that you have now are going to come back into something that you later use in a book or a screenplay, whatever it is that you write. I also watch a lot of TV. Good TV, mind, and movies, very good movies. I'm really discerning. I only watch good TV and read good books, because if you read or you watch trash, you're going to end up writing trash. So I think learn early on how to tell whether something's good or whether something's bad. I think up until I was about 30, I had this thing that I had to finish every book that I started. And now I just throw it aside if I think it's not as good as I think it should be, just because life is too short. So I guess what I'm saying is that I learned the art of storytelling from watching TV. Don't tell your teachers or your parents that. So there are some benefits. I still absorb storytelling technique without even realizing it, just because I think some of the best writers these days are screenwriters. I've never ever studied creative writing. I hope that's not too obvious. And when people ask me, do I need to do a creative writing master's? I mean, I just laugh, because I don't think you do need to do any of that. My English teacher told me when I was 17 not to bother studying English at university, so I didn't. But what I did do was I kept diaries, I wrote hundreds of letters, because this was in the age of pre-internet. I know I don't look old enough, but I was a teenager before they invented the World Wide Web. We didn't have smartphones, so if we wanted to stay in touch, we either had to phone or write a letter. So I wrote hundreds of letters, and later on I wrote hundreds of love letters, and I wrote really bad poetry. I wrote letters to editors, and when Tim Berners-Lee finally invented the internet, I started a blog. This was in about 2000. I wrote hundreds of essays on things like Hamlet, and later at university I wrote essays on things like female resistance to fascism and neorealistic cinema. And I think all of these things paved the way without me even realizing it. They taught me how to write. They taught me how to construct good sentences. So at the time, even though I had no clue, I always feel like it was leading me to where I am today. What else did I do? I produced plays. I starred in plays. I used to imagine conversations that I would have if I ever met Michael Bean. Look him up. You're far too young to know who he is. And basically, I fed my imagination without even realizing that's what I was doing. So that when I tried out being a writer when I was 30, I'd had all of these experiences and I had all of this practice to draw on. So if I could look back and tell my younger self anything, it would be to do more, to live more, to be even more adventurous, to screw that year abroad living in Turin in Italy and spend the year instead with a backpack on my back seeing the world. I would tell myself to dream bigger and write everything down. I would tell her to get over boys faster because I won't meet the love of my life until I'm 24. But all those boys are going to feed into the books that I write, so they are worth experiencing. They're just not worth crying over. I would tell her to have that affair with the photographer twice her age, but not to bother getting upset over him. I would tell her to forget about that English teacher telling her not to do English. I would tell her to keep on dreaming big and bold and having crazy experiences and adventures, and to kind of be open to anything that comes her way. I would tell her too that career advice at school sucks and she shouldn't be talking to a careers advisor, but rather to people out there who are living their passions and finding out what jobs are out there that might involve those passions. Because if I had even known that there were jobs in things like publishing, or that I could be a screenwriter, or work in advertising or broadcast journalism, but I didn't even know those jobs existed. So I guess that would be my advice on how to find inspiration and how to get a career in writing. And as for writing a book as a teenager, I mean, it's such a noble aspiration. But writing a book is a really hard thing. It takes a long time, it takes commitment, and it takes an amount of skill. So I think just pour your energy into living and gathering experiences, which will then feed your imagination and also ensure longevity as a writer, because these are going to be the experiences that nourish you in later years. And also the people that you meet are going to possibly be the people who in later years might help you. So, one more thing. One of the most important things you can do for yourself if you want to be a writer, or kind of anything really in life, the most important skill, I mean, I had a private school education, I got a first from Bristol, and I still think the most important skill I have is learning how to touch type. I learned when I was 17, and I can type 80 words a minute, which basically means I can write a book in a month. And I still think it's the most important skill I've ever had. When I was 18, right through university, I temped as a PA and a secretary, partly because I could type so fast. So yeah, forget all the rest, just learn how to touch type. And then write in your spare time, and don't stress about not being able to write a whole book. Write other things. Build your skill, because practice makes perfect, and you're just a teenager, so don't stress about it. You should be out there having fun and just write in your spare time, because if it is your passion, you will get there. And good luck, and any aspiring writers out there, I hope this has given you a few ideas and some inspiration.